Hello, everyone. Welcome to Social Hackers Academy Talks, a bi-weekly show where we speak with tech industry professionals about where the industry is going, how to become a better software engineer, how to land a job in tech, and much more. The show is brought to you by Social Hackers Academy, a nonprofit remote coding school. We offer fully funded front-end web development scholarships, and applications for joining the next cohort are opening in a few weeks' time. So follow our website. You can find more information at www.socialhackersacademy.org. Thank you, everyone, for joining our talks. And I'm really, really happy to host this event for you. Myself, I am Vaida. I work at Social Hackers Academy in employability. My goal in Social Hackers Academy is to support students in gaining soft skills and going through and being prepared for the application process, so that when they graduate from your program, they're fully prepared to go ahead and land their dream job in tech. Today, we are joined by Sofiane Ammar, who is going to be our speaker. Sofiane Ammar has just joined us, so I will welcome him to the panel.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. I was stuck in a kind of technological problem, it seems, to connect.
No problem. Well, we have you here, and that's really nice.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Sofiane, for joining. Maybe let's start with just telling a little bit about yourself. So you have quite an impressive experience in entrepreneurship and working with refugees and as well as software development. So it'd be great to hear a little bit more about it.
Yeah, thank you to invite me. I mean, I'm really happy and glad to be part of the talk and conference and probably try to exchange with the maximum number of people present today. My background is I'm a migrant. I came from Tunisia 30 years ago, 35 years ago, and I came to France to study, mainly to study, and then I had the opportunity at when I was 23rd, long time ago. I met an entrepreneur after graduating from a software development university. I got the degree of being a software developer, which is a traditional, let's say, engineering degree. Probably we will discuss about it later, but more and more competition about this software development curriculum came with the bootcamp of coding, and then I met this guy, and I really experienced the very intensive career in 3 startups, and then I inherit this. I was incubated very early in the entrepreneurship field, and then we succeeded to sold our company in 2000 to a big telcos, and then came a period of 20 years now where I'm mainly investor, advisor, and also a business angel for several startups in Europe. And finally, the last 3 years, I consecrated 90% of my energy and my operational work, let's say, to build up a coding school nearby or in refugee camps in the Middle East, mainly in Jordan, where there is one of the biggest, by the way, Middle East camp in Zaatari, called Zaatari in Mafraq city. And now we are trying to scale in Kenya, in Dadaab. And the idea was really that from my own experience as a manager of companies, talents are everywhere, and talents also in coding could be from refugees and from sitting in refugee camps. That's the overall career I made. And then now we have 2 coding schools in Jordan, and we are trying to scale in other cities and in other countries, hopefully.
Thank you very much for this introduction. It seems like you really had an impressive career. I'm quite curious to ask, so what brought you in the first place into this entrepreneurship world?
You mean the entrepreneurship? Yeah, well, as I mentioned, when you finish your study and you enter in a very little companies, in a very little startup when you are 20, 22, 23, at the age of 22 or 23, and you are part of this little team, you inherit this rapidly a capacity of understanding what is the entrepreneur mindset, and I think it's really a total distinction with the traditional approach of making your own studies, going to a large corporate, having several roles in large corporate, and succeeding in as a career in the entrepreneurship area or fields. There is a permanent exploration mindset and a permanent ideation process that give you this, in the same time, some positive aspect of life, and also from time to time, failures and the difficulty behind failures when you are an entrepreneur is quite massive. But the fact that I entered in these little startups when I was 23rd, rapidly I understood that this capacity of entrepreneurship have to be built in your own personality, and the fact that I spend a lot of time with this guy, the entrepreneur Jean-Luc Naon, it really brought me a lot of inspiration, resiliency, self-esteem, and I reinvent part of my vision about the career and shifted radically to the entrepreneurial field. And then I followed after selling our company in 2000. I followed the same path, because you cannot just simply move from an entrepreneur emotion to something to a traditional employee. And I've been building 3 other companies after 2000, and recently I've been building these NGOs for supporting the refugees in refugee camps. And it was an opportunity. We call it an opportunity of meeting someone and not searching for a traditional path. Historically, when you graduate, you search for big names, big brands, like big companies. I just recently saw a poll in France, for example, saying that 60% of the young generation now would like to move not in the traditional big brands like big companies, but first scenario, they can build their own companies, which is an entrepreneurship century, I think. And second is brands that are really have a very impact on the planet and social impact and environmental impact. Then the game is changing, I think, and we see it every day. Then the entrepreneur mindset 25 years ago was not strong enough, and I think now it's really part of the aspiration of young generation in general. And we will perhaps talk about the opportunity also for refugees as part of the potential opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's touch this topic later. It's really, really interesting. But before we do so, maybe it would be great to look further into your experience as, from what I know, you have prepared a small presentation.
Yeah. Can I share it, or you would like?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be great if you share it. Yes.
Okay. Let's share my screen. Whoa, it's working. Yeah, well, I think the idea of the name of the presentation, it's really a few slides. I have 6 slides, but we can. I'm open to go through other details in the question and answer. But I'm calling the 21st century is an entrepreneur battlefield, because I really, since now more than 20 years, I saw the evolution, a radical evolution of the entrepreneurship. And you probably know, and the people that are listening know that beginning from Amazon and Google and all these big guns in the US really changed the world in a certain way. It changed the world of how we see the world, of how we use, and it's a battlefield, and it's an entrepreneur battlefield. And that's why it's our battlefield today as people that we inspire the other. We know exactly that the coming 10 years, it will be a massive number of tech entrepreneur, impact entrepreneur. Some will succeed, some will fail, but it's really a century based on this capacity of creating something and not following the traditional way. My life journey, I just talked about rapidly, but migrant, software engineer, and get a chance to be a tech entrepreneur for more than 30 years now. And currently I'm advisor and business angel in several European startups. And I began this adventure because I'm not coming from the humanitarian world. I began in 2016 when I visited Zaatari camp in Jordan. And recently I also visit Dadaab camp in Kenya, the biggest refugee camp in the world. Well, the photo that you have on the right side is unfortunately what triggered, fortunately or unfortunately for the family that lost these children, in fact, in 2016. And it triggered me a very important emotion that really brought me to visit UNHCR in Geneva and say, I would like to help with all my expertise and my money refugees. And then I visited Zaatari camp. And that's why I decided to, in 2018, to create this NGO called CHAMPS. It was the idea. When I visited the camp, I found massive number, more than 50% of the refugees sitting in the camp are between 17 and 22, that young generation. And I observed that there is no higher education or vocational training in these refugee camps. And then I decided to build up my own NGO with some friends and some of my network in order to train mainly highly employable young refugees and local vulnerable population using computer coding as part of the curriculum and the education. Yeah, well, the ambition is to really train 10,000 students and focus on employability. Why employability? Because, and why coding, by the way? Because if we compare to my own generation and my own experience as a software engineer, we don't need anymore to spend 5 years of our life to get a degree or to get a bachelor to be an expert of coding. We know exactly now, since 7 to 8 years, that there is talents that just spend between 6 months to 1 year in coding techniques and become really talents and are recruitable, let's say, by companies. To give you some figures also, we know that more than 2 million jobs in codings are missing today around the world, which is a massive number. I mean, 2 million everywhere in the globe, development country, rich countries like the Western society, all everywhere in the globe, we need good coders and talents in coding. It means that if we succeed to have the right education, there is a real opportunities for vulnerable population and refugee to connect to a decent job. I'm not talking about image tagging job. I'm talking about real coders. Then I began with a pilot in Jordan, as I told you the story about when I saw the Elan photos, and then when I went there, I began with a pilot. And it's important to know that when you are an entrepreneur, you have to explore things with the risk and with let's say the capacity that something will not go right in your planning. And generally, you will have to plan in an agile way and not something very planned on a 5 years basis. Then I began with a little pilot near Zaatari camp with some Syrian refugees sitting in the camp, some also refugees outside the camp, and some Jordanian vulnerable population. And then we, from 30 students, we obtained 22 students that got the certificate. Some of them are now working even remotely working with US companies, sitting in Zaatari camp. And that was the bet. Our bet is to say that refugees are also talent, and we demonstrated that some of them could really have the right level that we have in Europe or whatever in Eastern country like Ukraine or Estonia, where there is a really good coders. Then we made some partnership with the UNHCR in Jordan, some other brands that gave us let's say the curriculum. We adapted it we added also some soft skills and some English, advanced English for because we know that from a job perspective is very important to have the capacity of communicating in English, being part of a team, even if you are not present physically. And the COVID really gave us this truth that now the remote working techniques is part of the industry, and people can be recruited remotely if they are good enough, if they are accountable, if they can play with the team, and if they communicate with the team. And that's part of the challenge that we made. Well, why computer code for refugees? Well, I think I mentioned there is here some statement that I summarize here about figures from Accenture in 2019. Accenture is one of the biggest company in the world in services and consulting, and particularly in IT. Digital is perfectly suited to meet employment challenges, and there is a lot. And through the World Bank study in 2019, there is a challenge in GCC countries, which is the part of the Middle East countries, to access talents, and that's one of the aim. If I take the Jordanian market, there is also a lot of government studies and strategies like Reach 2025 that really same thing, iterate the fact that if we need to create a digital industry, we need to create digital talents. And coding is part of this industry, and that's why we promoted the first pilot into this industry. Well, I gave some here, particularly from one country to another. We have some caveat in order that refugees in camp or refugees outside the camp could work legally, which is quite a difficulty and a challenge in this country, because in fact the majority of development countries that hosted millions of refugees have a challenge to also make their own local citizen work, and then there is some countries that don't allow digital talents from refugees, for example. But there is solution. They gave some solution, which is I described them here. The first one is you can have your own home-based, what we call the home-based, home web-based. It's a freelance mainly. It's described as a freelance, or you can also set up your own company if you share the majority with the Jordanian citizen, for example. And there is some, by the way, use cases in Jordan, mixed between Jordanian and refugees. Well, the training techniques is also part of the mindset that came not in my generation, but now the young generation have the capacity through the internet, through some startups, through some contents that really no specific degree is asked from employers, and this is quite new. It's really important to know that it's a question of decide from your own self that you can be a good coder or a talent in code. It's a question of what are the tips and the education you needed, and then what are the content that you would like to address as part of the day-to-day operation. And internet came, and the content around internet came and gave us what we call these techniques of learn to learn. What happens in this innovation world? You know, if I take the example of Python as a language, Python in 2013 was really no one know how we program with Pythons. Now we are 2021. The Python's developers could have more than between $3,000 to $4,000 a month billing in Python language. And Python was one of the recent language very well used in artificial intelligence, for example, in AI techniques. Then what is happening is that the traditional curriculum that myself and others made, which is based on the 5 years, is there is a competition with the pace of innovation that we have in framework, in languages, in cloud environment, that give the capacity, give the opportunity. If you follow between 6 months to 1 year, the right education, you can begin as a junior, but you can make more and more perfectioning and just reading and exploring the right content about the specialty that you would like to use in coding. And then you can succeed really to match a job. And this is new. And this is a disruptive way. What the technology and training brought is this disruptive capability to bring a lot of audiences that are not connected, no prior training in IT or no prior training in whatever, with certain logics, with a certain rhythm of working, they can deliver and they can begin as a good talent in coding. Then this is today these hybrid schools are really adaptive. They began in 2010. You have around the world, you have in every country, you have lot, I mean, depending from one country to another, but in Europe, in US, you have number of them. In the Middle East, also in Africa, some now coding school brought this capacity of delivering the content. Well, I try to summarize what we are, some of the quality that we ask our student as part of our schools to become a real talent. I think, well, one of my and this is the five. It's not rocket science, but I really stress the fact that with these 5 qualities, you can really have the capacity to learn. It's the adaptive way to learn. There is no traditional way now to learning. It's your way to understand how these techniques and what are the contents that is related to these techniques that could give you the capacity to begin your career in code and potentially become an entrepreneur. And that's the idea. And open-mindedness is one of the first one. Open-mindedness means that no judgment for the other culture. Open your mind, discuss with the people. Discussing with people could create opportunity. This is the way it happened to me. I met someone when I was 22. He proposed to me to meet little companies. If I was with the traditional way to say, no, it's a little company. I'm an engineer, I need a very big brand. But I followed my gut and my feeling. And when you are open-minded, a lot of things happens, and that's part of the connection and the network that you can create when you are open-minded. Curiosity is my father. One of the he does not have any degree historically, and the curiosity was one of his education for me. Was reading, for example, 30 minutes a day is a curiosity aspect. You don't need to read just because you have to read, but reading means exploring anything related to your topics, but also other topics. And the rhythm of curiosity is one of the really important trait of an entrepreneur is the permanent way how he live or she live the experience of the curiosity and discovering, and from one exploration to another, from time to time there is connecting the dot. And I remember when Steve Jobs explained his journey before Apple Computer. He said that he spent 2 years of his life learning the typography and something that was not very interested at that time. But he was not aware at that time that something would connect this typical learning of how you write things on a computer to an engineer, Steve Wozniak, and they created the Mac with only the feature in the beginning that you wrote a different type of characters, and that's made the difference between IBM historically, which was very simple language that you can write with your computer. Then everything related to curiosity is part of the it's part of what you could bring to yourself. Well, creativity is also the fact that you are connected to a lot of different contents, and you have massive content on not only MOOC, but also a lot of edtech startups that are really delivering today very interesting connection and about what they are creating. Motivation, how you can be motivated every day, which is really, there is no specific technique, and I think it's everyone have his own or her own motivation technique, but I can give mine, and I think the idea is really to plan in 2 or 3 weeks exactly what you could deliver to yourself, between you and yourself. I'm not talking even about if you have a job, and this is the fact that you put your own objective, for example, to learn something new or to be certified in something new, is part of the motivation, and it's part of the technique I've been using since a long time ago. Well, a self-learning approach, this is the thing that changed the game from my generation, is that the majority of the content, you don't need anymore a top-down approach from teacher. I know that teacher is very important and teacher inspired, but in the same time, you have a massive content, very expert content, and very well explained content. If tomorrow you decide, for example, to be an expert in cloud computing like Amazon Web Services, you go through this kind of website, for example. Let me check if I have it. Well, I don't find it here, but here. You go to the Amazon Web Services certification, see the number, take a look on the number of level and certification. I don't know if you heard about this cloud computing infrastructure. Amazon Web Services, to give you an example, they began in 2006. I was, by the way, managing my own startup. And in 2006, no one heard about Amazon Web Services. We are in 2021, which is 15 years after. They are now executing $45 billion as a revenue. And just to telling that the sophistication of Amazon Web Services, you can be an expert having all this level of certification from your home, getting all these techniques happen, because the sophistication is very well documented. It's a question of a journey that you have to motivate yourself to do it. And if you have certain level of certification, you can really, there is a massive demand of expert in Amazon Web Services. Then, in fact, there was no teachers here. There was no coach or teacher. You decide if tomorrow you have to be an associate, for example, and become a solution architect. You have the content, you have the certification, it costs a few dollars, and then you can go to the LinkedIn, announce yourself as a beginner or as a good level, and then you can get a job. And this is something today that is happening for hundreds of thousands of people, because the demand is massive here. And I can tell you that I have a lot of companies that are searching, and they don't find people. And that's part of the self-learning approach. The self-learning approach is you follow the trend. I can give you a second example. I can give you a second example. I was working for a cryptocurrency called Cardano. You know this cryptocurrency, same thing. Cardano. Well, Cardano is a cryptocurrency that like Ethereum, they are building apps and services around an infrastructure. Same thing here. Cardano have a specific language, specific framework of the language. You can become an expert and you can have a clear job. Why? Because, traditional degree does not give you the expertise around Cardano language, for example. That's the profound shift between top-down teacher approach to how you can be a talent with your own gut and with your own motivation and self-learning approach. But then finally, life skills. believe in yourself. I mean, I just put the Mark Twain thing. I mean, believing in yourself is really the massive point. I mean, you can describe to yourself every day. No judgment, I mean, the failure is part of life. And I know particularly from my own culture and the Latin culture in continental Europe, is failing is really hard to be seen. But in fact, failure is good. Failure will really bring, in a certain way, the learning curve that will give you the opportunity after failures to succeed. And this is something that we should adapt ourselves to understand, that when you are an entrepreneur, when you test yourself, it's also possible to fail, and it's also possible to succeed. And that not having this perspective of the doubt would give you the stress to only succeed, you know. And find out your path to education, financing, resilience, focus, and all what I described here is really part of what you can bring to yourself. With everything is possible, and don't follow the traditional path. This is the way I had a chance to be, and I'm 56. I can tell you that some of the quality here, if you adapt yourself to this quality, you are really open to have the opportunity to access to what could be your life success. Is it okay? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Then, well, I just finished, and
Okay.
we could have a long discussion about all this, but I'm keen to understand the question, or if you would like me to go through some details.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting. So I would like to ask you, so since a lot of the people watching will be from the refugee or migrant background, it would be interesting to hear on how actually someone with such a background could leverage it in a positive way when trying to build a career in tech.
Well, let me put some light. It seems that I'm lacking some light. Yeah, sorry. Could you just repeat the question, because that leveraging, how we should leverage this technique in the
So not technique, but more so it's specifically for someone with a refugee or migrant background. So when people that have that background, when they are trying to get a job in, let's say, in a tech company, how could they leverage their background from a positive way when applying for a job?
Well, I gave the example of Amazon. I think if you are on LinkedIn today, and if you are on LinkedIn and propose just 2 or 3 of the expertise I just showed here in my image, I mean, through LinkedIn you can connect to a lot of employees, and you can promote your expertise, and you can get some interview, and then you can get a job. And LinkedIn is a very powerful tool today that they are making massive revenue through Headhunter, for example, and companies. And you can really connect to employers, through LinkedIn. But you can probably also through some contact that you can have on the website of these companies and go directly, because they have generally what we call an HR back office, and then they can also, you can also send your CVs, and then you can be interviewed. But I generally advise our students to go through LinkedIn to promote their expertise, to promote, by the way, they are refugees, and that's part also of the how they can trigger some discussion with the employers. But I mean, LinkedIn is one of the massive tools that we use today globally. I mean, to hire. One of my students in Zatari camp just recently, after the certification of our bootcamp, got a job in a fintech startup in US through LinkedIn. Just to give you a rapid snapshot.
Okay, thank you. Also, you talked quite a lot about entrepreneurship. So I would like to ask, so how one should know whether they should try follow the entrepreneurial path or go a more traditional way and find a job?
Well, if you don't know, I mean, if you have an expertise, like I mentioned coding, but it could be another expertise, and you don't have, let's say, an idea to create something, I think what triggered the entrepreneurship mindset is that you have an idea, you have a vision, and then you try to promote it and to create it as an entrepreneur. If you don't have any idea, and if you have an idea, you have to be challenged on this idea. You have to discuss with your peer. You have to discuss with other ecosystem to understand if your idea vision could trigger a strategy and could trigger a product and could trigger a company. Then, if you have an idea, you can go to a journey of an entrepreneur. If you don't have an idea, you can begin as a normal job, let's say. It could be better in a startup, because in a startup you have the mood and you have the discussion with others about how things in an agile way could be created. And this gives you also some spirit of entrepreneurship, even if you are not entrepreneur. And little companies, for me, are really more adapted if you have the resilience to work hard and to be accountable than big company where you can lose part of your soul because it's very processed and very organized. Then it's really depending on your capacity to say that this idea is a good idea that I would like to create in the market, and I have a potential product. Otherwise, you have to work normally in a normal career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Another question that I am curious to know is, so as you've had experience both from the education side and from the tech industry side, what kind of gap did you observe from the people that are applying to a job and what actually the tech industry needs? Like, what sort of skills gap there is?
Yeah, the skills gap is important. I mean, and if I take, for example, Jordan as a country, after some study, I saw that in the majority of university, the training is very theory. In fact, you have a few practice, few project, but the majority of the university, well, there is probably 2 or 3 universities that have an excellent computer science degree, but the majority are really quite poor in terms of the project and the project execution, the project coding. And in fact, this is the gap. The gap is that in a bachelor or in a traditional degree, some country, some university, it's not a generalization, are not really adapted to the pace of innovation that you have in what in jobs are required. And I gave the example of AWS, but there's a lot of examples like this. And I mentioned also Python, for example, as a language. Then the fact that you don't practice, you don't code every year, every month, you don't deliver project, it's not a learning by doing approach. It's really a learning approach. And it's not a critics, by the way, you can learn a lot. But what companies are requiring today, when you go to companies, they can ask you your GitHub repository to see what is the number of projects you deliver. If you follow the traditional path, generally you don't have a lot of projects. If you go to this kind of new bootcamp, you have a number of projects you deliver. And that's the main difference. Recruiters today need, even if you are junior, even if you just followed 6 months or 1 year of coding, they need you to demonstrate to them that you coded a lot, that you made some project. And that's the main difference.
Okay, thank you. So the big difference is the actual experience, I guess, in the projects that graduates can show. If the university graduates and bootcamp graduates, there seems to be quite a big difference between the practical projects. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, then I will then open the floor to the questions. So if anyone has any questions, just drop them here. Okay, Shahab has a question. Does having an idea alone makes it easy to get into the spirit?
What is
entrepreneurial spirit? Does having an idea alone makes it easy to get into the entrepreneurial spirit?
You mean if, yeah, I mean, that's why I said you should challenge your own idea with your peer or with your family or with your friends, because I'm not sure that just stating that the idea is an important idea or an impressive idea, interacting with the other could make you learn. And that's one of the points. I mean, today you can interact even virtually with people. I remember my son, when he was 13 and 14, he was playing with this game of Warcraft, and he was connected with people everywhere around the globe, Chinese, Australian, etc. And I was impressed by the interaction about the strategy of this game. And idea is the same thing. If you would like to make, to create your own company or to create your own startup, before you make this decision, you should challenge your idea. You should go through a kind of bad challenging with some of your nearest people, and then interact, and then have an idea. What is the plan? I'm not talking about a plan for 5 years, but just a plan from an idea to a vision, to a strategy, to a product. And what is these 4 steps will give you as the steps to build your own company before you go there.
Thank you. Shahab also asked another question linked with entrepreneurship, which is, what is the first step to start?
Well, good question. Where he's sitting? He's sitting in Greece? Shihab. Okay. Well, probably it depends kind of the country where they are. I mean,
you can type in the chat, Shahab. I'm just saying to Shahab that he can type in the chat. Okay. Where
it depends from the majority of the country around the world, Egypt. Well, the majority and Egypt have a strong startup ecosystem. I followed some of the Egyptian news about the startups. There is a strong ecosystem there. There is a strong also business angel. How you begin? I mean, I think you should collect on the internet you list all the institutions who can give you what we call the incubation program that help you to understand all the principles of being an entrepreneur. And you have some of them in Cairo, in Egypt, there you have a lot of incubation program that will open the door and open, you know, the steps that will help you and will support you to, from an idea to make the company and potentially the product. And I really strongly advise to visit some incubator, list them, take a look on their topics and their program, and then you can decide to meet 2 or 3 of them and select one of them that could help you to analyze your idea, bring you to the vision, and perhaps build your own company after.
Okay, thank you. But how to actually verify that idea? So also sometimes maybe people have multiple ideas. So how to actually know which one to proceed with?
Yeah, well, like me, I can have 100 ideas a day. Yeah, well, don't listen to your emotion in the ideas. It's very important that you don't, if you have several ideas, you should really challenge these ideas with the others and just listen to them, not only go straight away to execute. Listen to the other, challenge yourself with the other. And I think what could be the idea that you have to choose? Well, it depends probably on several factors. One of the factors could be the market that you are addressing. Are we talking about a big market, a reasonable market, a B2C market, a B2B market? Because if the idea is, for example, selling tech product, software or whatever, in a certain niche of software usage, you should really understand, explore if there is competitor, what is the value proposition. Then the fact that you have an idea, generally the idea came with an emotion. You don't have to listen to your emotion. Go to the data. On the internet, you can find a lot of data about your own idea, and then challenge with others, and then you can really choose from 3 or 4 ideas what could be the best for you. And I just told about the market perspective. Market is quite important when you decide to go in one area compared to another. I think if you I mentioned this Amazon Web Services, we know that now the majority of large corporate and even corporate in general will move their internet application, on cloud services. You have Microsoft Azure, you have Google Cloud, G Cloud, and Amazon Web Services. And then this market is a new market, and you have a massive demand on this market. Then if you would like to create something, you can also seek, for example, this market, particularly if it's something suited for you or not.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned challenging ideas quite a few times. So what would be the process of actually challenging an idea?
Well, I can give you an example of there was a very important, a developer called Nathan Mars in US create an algorithm. He was not sure about the importance of the algorithm. He created an architecture called Lambda architecture. It is now well-known used, but in 2011, he created an algorithm. Then the idea behind the algorithm is how you can compute in real-time stream of data. Then when he created the algorithm, he didn't create a company. He said, okay, I would like to challenge this algorithm. I would like to challenge the idea behind the architecture. Then he opened a template, a website with one page, and said, okay, I have a nice algorithm. Could you come with me and connect, discuss about this idea, challenge me, and then he crowdsourced 100 developers around the idea. And through these 100 developers, they decide to create an open source platform called the Lambda architecture. And then the Lambda architecture gave the company called Backtype, and Backtype was sold to Twitter ultimately in 2013. Then, in fact, from the initial idea, he created just a landing page, one page on the internet, saying that I need you, friends, other people that you know, friends of friends, I need you to challenge my own idea in this algorithm. And he grew through the community. They succeeded from an idea to transform it to a huge business. And Twitter ultimately bought this business because Twitter was in need to compute in real time all the streams coming from the tweets. And this guy, from an idea, succeeded to make a very important project. In the beginning, challenging was with a little community, what we call the core community team in general, which is people that you know and can be part of the adventure if after the challenging step, you can create a consensus about the idea with some of the core team member of some of the core community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That was a very interesting story. What if someone doesn't have an idea or doesn't really want to start a business, but they still want to gain some experience to build up a portfolio so that they can land a job? So what could be the opportunities for them to actually gain that experience without getting employed?
Well, through my own experience with migrant, refugees, and also vulnerable population in Jordan, the important way is really to have the right education, and particularly we made this experience, and now we are in the process to scale up this experience in other coding school, is the fact that code is the new law. You know, code is a new law, meaning that if you know how you code, even if your future will not be a developer of software, but the fact that you know coding will open a huge perspective around you. Then if you don't want to go to, or if you don't have an idea, what we mentioned, you should learn to code, learn deeply to code. It's about 6 months, it's about maximum 1 year. And then it could bring you the opportunity and the capacity to work in coding, but also in other area that is growth hacking, digital marketing, and other area around these techniques. Then I strongly advise really in this 21st century to know how you code. Even if you are not interested of how you, if you don't know exactly if the coding will bring you 100% job opportunity, but I'm sure that it will be the case that even if you shift after coding to go to another skills, this skills will really bring you the openness, bring you the curiosity, because you will control a lot of things around what you are using in our everyday usage, in fact, apps, website, or whatever, fake news, Facebook, etc., etc. Then if you don't in the beginning willing to be an entrepreneur, it was my case. I was not imagined. I didn't imagine after my degree that I would be an entrepreneur. I was in traditional way to say I would be an employee of a company. And I took a job, and through this job, I learned to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much, Sofiane, for sharing the wonderful experience and the insights to our viewers. It's already the time to finish the talk. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and the team of Social Hacker to give me the floor.
Thank you. It was a pleasure hosting you. And for those who are watching, the recording is going to be available in our YouTube channel, so you can also will be able to rewatch it later. So thank you very much to everyone who attended, and especially to Sofiane for being with us here today.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so this is the end. You can watch the video, as I mentioned, in our YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on social media if you haven't already. Have a great evening and see you in other talks. Bye-bye.